All right, so let's start with the big story that we're tracking on WION at this hour. The European Union chief Ursula von der Leyen has said that the member nations of the European Union will discuss a price cap on Russian gas as part of the measures to punish Moscow for the invasion of Ukraine. Take a look.
The European Commission will propose a price cap on Russian gas. That was the message from Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on Wednesday. Some EU countries are wary over the move, as they fear it could cost them the already lower supply they are receiving from Moscow. Russian President Vladimir Putin warned Wednesday his country would stop supplying gas and oil if price caps were imposed. But von der Leyen says Europe must not be cowed.
We all know that our sanctions are deeply grinding into the Russian economy with a heavy negative impact. But Putin is partially buffering through fossil fuel revenues. So here the objective is we must cut Russia's revenues, which Putin uses to finance his atrocious war in Ukraine.
Von der Leyen also talked of other measures to cope with the energy crisis. That included proposals to lower soaring power prices, partly by capping the amount paid for energy from renewables and other non-gas sources.
It is now time for the consumers to benefit from the low costs of low-carbon sources, like, for example, the renewables. We will propose to rechannel these unexpected profits. We channel them to the member states so that the member states can support the vulnerable households and vulnerable companies.
Renewable and nuclear energy hasn't been affected by the gas price surge, but their operators have raked in profits as wholesale prices for energy jumped. Von der Leyen said oil and gas firms that have posted huge jumps in profits would also be required to make a solidarity contribution. Energy ministers from the bloc will discuss their proposals at an emergency meeting on Friday.
All right, now to give us more insights in terms of what all of this, of course, means, we're being joined in by our correspondent Ross Cullen, who's joining us live from Paris at this point of time. Now, Ross, this is an interesting proposal that the EU seems to be flirting with. It wants to impose a price cap on Russian gas. But how is this going to work? Because the Russians would turn around and say that they would want to cut off all gas that comes into Europe.
Yes, this is the European Union's attempt to show that it is being proactive rather than having to react. We know that there have been interruptions and every now and again complete shut-offs of these gas supply pipelines coming from Russia to the European Union into Europe. At times, Russia has said there has been a malfunction of a turbine or maintenance needed for a turbine, a fuel leak as well, said by the Kremlin to have impacted that supply of gas to Europe. So this is the EU now trying to show that it is not going to stand by while market manipulation of the energy market in Europe goes ahead. Now they're the words of Laurence Boone. She's the French she's the French Europe minister, and she has been saying that we need to halt Russia's market manipulation as a counter-offensive. So that underlines this strategy by Brussels to try to show Russia that it is taking proactive steps with the cap on gas prices, with the cut in electricity use it's urging its members to abide by, and also by trying to bring in a windfall tax on excess energy profits to support consumers through this winter.
I think that's an interesting way of putting it, because the European Union wants to appear that it is proactive and is not really reacting to what Russia has been doing in terms of how it's sending gas through its pipelines. But the question that I want to ask you is, considering the manner in which the prices have just gone through the roof because of the shortage of gas and other hydrocarbons within the European Union, do you think the European Union has it in it to actually call the Russian bluff of shutting off gas to Europe this coming winter?
It certainly is taking as many steps as possible, as fast as possible, to try to support consumers through measures already being brought in this summer, and now we're into the early autumn. For example, trying to get as much gas into storage facilities in European Union member states as quickly as possible. France, for example, is now over 90% in terms of how much gas it has in its storage capacity. It hopes to be at a 100% storage capacity by by the end of October. Also measures coming in during the summer in Spain, for example, to try to reduce energy use, to try to cut consumption, so to be able to save energy in the summer so that it can be used in the winter, because there will be colder months, there will be the darker months, and Europe's populations are going to be wanting to turn on the lights and turn on the heating as well, but they might not be able to do so if they fear these astronomical prices. We are already seeing inflation across the continent. Here in France, it's more than 6%. So the prices of regular goods in the supermarket has gone through the roof, and then your monthly bill when it arrives for how much gas and electricity you use has also shot up in the European Union and in the UK as well. So the leaders in Brussels and in the national capitals like Berlin and Paris are trying to bring in measures as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, this summer and autumn, to try to get ahead of any possible price squeezes this winter.
Absolutely indeed. And just before we let you go, Ross, because this is a story that is being watched around the world, you know, Europe bracing itself for this winter. Now, any proposal like this, like a price on gas, a cap on the price of gas, it needs a consensus between all 27 EU nations. Is there going to be consensus between all of the members of the European Union for this proposal to in fact go through?
Yeah, there certainly is a bit of intransigence when it comes to Budapest. We know that the Hungarian government has been a bit of a holdout on certain policies, certain sanctions that the European Union has been bringing in through the spring in response to when Russia invaded late February. Throughout the spring and then into the summer, the European Union has tried to upgrade and increase its sanctions, and there's often been complaints about the level or the specificity of those sanctions from Hungary. So now the latest move by Brussels for an energy plan for the winter. We will be watching to see also if there are any complaints raised by Viktor Orban, the Hungarian Prime Minister, certainly one of the European Union's member states that is closest to Russia. He has said previously that there needs to be a third way, not sanctions, not putting pressure on Russia. But when it has come to the crunch, Budapest, the national government there, has signed off on all the EU sanctions packages so far. So there is likely perhaps to be some complaints, some noises from some of those states, particularly Hungary. But what Ursula von der Leyen will be hoping to do is to be able to get consensus and get this plan in action.
Absolutely indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Ross, for joining us from Paris and getting us all those insights there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.